Teamwork is not easy, but high-functioning teams understand that if we don't have teamwork, getting to the final destination is going to be a whole lot harder. Patrick Lencioni, in his book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, talks about this, and he gives these 5 steps that are needed to ultimately find results as a team. And at the very, very foundation of these 5 things is trust. And he says if there's not trust built into your team, you're going to maybe not see results at all, or you'll see a lot less of the results that you actually want to see. So think about for a second, have you ever been a part of a team, maybe a sports team growing up, or maybe a worship team, or a team at work, where there was truly trust amongst all of your colleagues, amongst all the people on the team, where you weren't worried about, man, if I speak my own mind, if I truly speak my mind, I'm going to, get fired, or, kind of be labeled as like a black sheep of the team. It's like, no, I actually felt like I could share my mind. I could share anything I wanted. I know I wasn't going to get fired. I know my ideas would be received. Even if they were, ultimately rejected, no one would judge me because of that. Have you ever experienced that? If so, you're doing really, really well, because so many people have never truly experienced trust on a team before, especially in churches and on worship teams, where it's so easy to smile at someone and even lie to someone than to be truly, truly honest. And trust so many times can be non-existent on our teams. And, we live in a day and age, it's so interesting to me where, you're hopping in an Uber in a foreign city with your family, and you're trusting a complete stranger with your life, or you're staying in a house that a family, moved out of, so you could move your whole family into it, called an Airbnb, and you trust them. And so we're living in a time in history where we've yet to master the ability to trust our colleagues or our teams, yet we can go out and, so often we're trusting complete and total strangers with our lives, and so if trust is not there, we're going to have so many other challenges on our teams. So the second thing, if you don't have trust, here's what you're going to lose. This will sound a bit weird at first, but if you don't have trust built on your team, you won't have good conflict in your team. Okay, conflict is not a negative thing. Conflict is actually a really, really good thing when it's done in a healthy way. And so if I don't actually trust you, if my team doesn't trust me, then they're going to just kind of shrink back and not honestly share what they feel. And then we're going to have a lack of conflict. And guys, the only way that you get better as a team, the only way you get better as a person ultimately is through conflict, and it's through challenges. And it's so important to have that on your team in an ongoing process. So we want to have trust built on our team, that we would have healthy conflict, number 2. Number 3, when you have trust, when someone feels they can actually share conflict in a healthy way, and they're not going to be fired, they're not going to be yelled at, whatever it is, then you're going to find incredible commitment from your team. You're going to have people who will go to bat for you. You're going to have people who will, die for you on that hill, right? A team that can accurately assess the reality will have a better chance of making clear commitments. And again, what is the reality of your team? Is this a safe place? Can I trust this leader? Am I going to get yelled at? And so if that is not there, if they can't properly assess reality, then they're probably not going to be very, very committed, because they're going to feel unsafe under your leadership. Team commitment is not the same as having consensus. Okay, so again, conflict is a good thing. When you're encouraged and inspired to share your ideas, and you know that you've been heard, you're much more likely to agree to the final decision, even if it differs from your original idea. So again, it doesn't mean that everyone on my team is always going to be happy. It doesn't mean they're always going to be like, well, yes, he always takes my ideas. Like, no, like if there's trust built, then when their conflict happens, when they bring an idea that, it's not going to affect their commitment to the team, because I heard all the ideas from all my different team members, and I made the decision, or we made the decision corporately, whatever, that we felt was best. But if you have that trust built there, you're not going to have people being like, oh, well, they didn't take my idea, I'm going to leave. It's like, no, it's like, because I can get my idea whenever I want, and I know that's going to be heard. And sometimes he goes with my idea, sometimes he doesn't, but I trust him unequivocally, right? The fourth thing that you're going to find when you have trust built on your team, when there's conflict, a healthy conflict happening, there's amazing commitment. And number 4, you're going to see there's actually accountability on your team. Not just me keeping my team members accountable, but from team member to team member, from the bass player to the drummer, from the keyboard player, to the percussionist, whatever it is. If you manage a team of people, you understand that part of your role is to hold them accountable for delivering results. Hey, if you have a new song that you're introducing at your band practice, it's a good thing for you to hold them accountable to show up knowing the parts that you ask them to learn, because you have a short band practice. You need to make sure that you value your time and value their time, right? But it's not just accountability from the top down, me to them. It's also when you have these things, trust and healthy conflict and all these things, you're going to find accountability one to another amongst your band, amongst your singers, amongst your department heads, amongst your admin. And that is an incredibly healthy team. When they begin to find accountability with one another, then you begin to realize like, wow, I've created something healthy here, because trust is at the foundation. And then the fifth thing you're going to see is results. What gets measured gets done. It's a very familiar saying in the business world. But if you actually can't see the results, you can't see them being measured on your team, then again, you're going to spin your wheels. You're going to keep going, possibly even for a couple of years, possibly even for a couple of decades. But what gets measured actually gets done. If you're measured, incentivized based on individual effort, human nature follows that you're more likely to put your individual results over collective results. But here it is. High-performing teams, this is Patrick Lencioni, high-performing teams understand if the team loses, everyone loses. When you're held accountable for team results, you're much more likely to make the extra effort to help team members when they need support. Teamwork is not easy, but high-performing teams understand that team alignment actually gives them an advantage. Now, again, this is talking for businesses, people, this business is here. If you're a worship leader only in ministry world, you might be like, what is he talking about? Competitive advantage, right? But you see what I'm saying, though. These principles that are applied to business, guys, they fully apply to our worship teams, to our churches. And so often, in my opinion, my humble opinion, churches are over here in ministry world, and this stuff doesn't really apply because we're doing God's work, and the man of God at the head, or the worship leader who's the head, it's like, no, it's my way or the highway. You're going to do this, da 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 da. And it's actually not a healthy trust system built. And there's also not a results system built so often in our churches, because it's just like, well, what is the goal? And I love it. It's like, well, the presence of Jesus is the goal, which that's not always the goal in a lot of churches, FYI. But if that is the goal, even that in and of itself is beautiful. Like, well, the only result I want is to encounter Jesus and experience his presence with me and my team, on Sundays and Wednesdays at the quarterly worship night. And I love that. But here's what I want to say to you very, very tenderly and very, very lovingly. That is not enough to have a functioning team with the proper things in place to do this for the long haul. Keep the presence of Jesus at the center of what you want, but you have to build a structure around that for team dynamics, for trust to be there, for healthy conflict to be there, or else you're going to see a constant kind of dispersion of people coming and going, and you might not fully know why. You might just say, well, they didn't want the presence of God, or they weren't willing to do this, or they weren't willing to do that, when in actuality, perhaps is because there were so many dysfunctions in your leadership as a worship leader. There are so many dysfunctions in your pastor or in your executive team where there was not these things built in. There was not trust. There was not healthy conflict. There's not accountability, and thus they're not seeing results. And so again, all this isn't going to apply to all of you guys, but a lot of this, I think I'm speaking to a lot of people here, you're going to like, wow, my church needs a healthy dose of this. And it's true, guys. So many churches need to grow in this realm because there's so much, I wanted to say the word filth, but that's really what it is. There's so much dysfunction is even a strong enough word. So many times there's like this abuse that's happening. My way or the highway, it's like, well, they didn't believe in our mission. They wanted to have more community, or they wanted to do this or whatever. And it's like, we were just about the presence of Jesus. And it's like, that's actually really, really unhealthy. Sounds really, really good. And, you even preach it that way. Like, this is what we're about. But in actuality, people are a part of your ministry. And there's two commandments. The first and greatest is to love the Lord your God. But the second is to love others as yourself.